So there are different topics to talk about, and today is really hot. One of the days when the temperature outside is about 30 or even 31 degrees Celsius. Yeah, and when I open the window, uh, I have no wind through this window, through from the street into the room, and in my room the temperature is 38 degrees Celsius, and it's really hot. I can handle the temperature till the level of 25 and 25 29.5 degrees Celsius, and above this it's really hard to think, to do anything. Just it's hard to stay in one place and to walk around the room. About the room is quite easier. Okay, it's easier to walk about the room than to stay in one place, because the air around your body, around your skin, gets warmer, and yeah, and it's like your skin warms the air around you, and your skin stays in this shell of 30 plus degrees. Yeah, but when you walk, then you move into the new air, and new temperature, and it feels cooler, even though all the temperature in the room 30.8 degrees. The interesting fact is that in the kitchen, when you open the window, the strong wind blows from the street into the kitchen, and it's really strong. And though the temperature outside is quite high, this wind makes you feel quite cool, because it takes away the air around you that your body just heated. So I don't know why the wind from the kitchen that looks to the east so strong, and there is no wind in the room that looks at the north. So anyway, this is the introduction ideas about how hot it is now. And well, this particular temperature is a short peak of temperature during this week, because about a week ago it was quite cool, or even cold temperature outside, like 18-20 degrees, and the room became the flat itself became quite cool after some time, when this cold temperature to cold air from outside cooled the walls and the ceiling of the room. And before that, there were maybe 2 weeks of extremely hot temperature, like right now, more than 30 degrees outside, and this continued for a week or two. So the summer with this level of temperature is quite hard season to endure. In winter, especially when there is this central warming system, in the building, in the apartment, if you are quite cold, you can put on some warm clothes, but in summer, when you are too hot, you can't take off more clothes, you can't take off your skin to feel cooler. So this is the first idea that I have to say something in English, and the goal of these sessions, of these monologues, is to say something in English. First, the problem was to get some topics to talk about, to practice my English thing, but for now I think the problem is that I can get small ideas on small topics, small talks, but it's better for these monologues to create long topics, as I said somewhere in the previous videos, like 3 topics, 15 minutes each, 15 minutes long each. But sometimes I just want to go with some small random facts, like the Euro news or other stuff, when they have this 5 minutes of television time, and they announce any news within 30 seconds. Anyway, another idea that I have now, and I told about this idea in the last video, that I need to improve this connection between the idea and this its representation in English. And one interesting example that I had recently is I read some book in English, in Russian, that I like. These books, some fantastic books with short stories, and these short stories united by the main characters that participate in the stories. So I read this book from time to time for last maybe 8 years, and it was written in Russian, and like, an interesting word. I want to translate it later. So, like, during the last month, when I had this idea of reading some Russian texts and trying to translate some verbs, for example, that I encounter through the text. So yeah, I decided to use this idea and for this book as well. The book is called, by the way, Beta Testers, the collection of short stories by Призрак, which is the nickname of the guy who wrote these stories in 2004. So I encountered this particular word, жаловаться, and it's very simple word, and I know the English translation for it, but as hard, no matter how hard I tried to recall this from my brain, I couldn't, because this connection wasn't established yet. So I went to the simplest dictionary with the 10,000 or maybe 8,000 words, Russian words, and their translations in English, and the translation was complaint. Yeah, it was very simple, because as soon as I read the word complaint, I had this pattern popped in my mind from one of the Brian Tracy's lectures, when he gave one of his thousands advices, and he said that successful people never complain and never explain. Yeah, so I know this word. Okay, I know the idea for this word in English, and I even know the particular pattern that can be used. A particular pattern that associates for me with this word, but yeah, I couldn't recall this word just from my mind. So my current goal is to get as much as possible these connections, to be able to recall the words, the English words that connects to the ideas, but from the side of ideas. At some point, I checked the word require, because I know this word like absolutely or something, because maybe in where it was, maybe in Ruby programming language, this word require is like the directive to import into the script some pre-written library. So obviously I knew this word, but at this step from the idea to the word was the thing that I needed to do, even though all this stuff looks like you can when go to your office, you can switch on turn on your computer and then log into your account and start working with all the stuff that you have, in your operating system, the word processor and other stuff that you have. But sometimes, if you have only this experience, you can't really go from the scratch, like when you buy the new computer and you install absolutely empty operating system from scratch on your computer. You need to know this stuff with dividing your hard drive into partitions, then making C partition the main partition where you install operating system, and then the other partitions are just the places where you can hold all your valuable information, so that if at some point your operation system will crash, you can restore it on your C partition, but all the data that was held on other partitions like D, E, and other, this data will be safe because you separated your data from your operating system, and you didn't do anything to it. But when I got my own computer for the first time and I did all this stuff, it wasn't really obvious for me that I need to do all this stuff, though I was able to log into Windows and work on my browser and other stuff. So, being able to work at point B with some data is not doesn't mean that you can get from point A to this point B. So this transition from A to B is like installing the operating system with this partitioning, with all the other stuff, setting drivers so that your video card works could work correctly, and other stuff, and then working at the fully prepared operating system. So for me now, being at the point B is just understanding the ideas behind the English, like text or audio, but going from point A to point B is like creating or finding the right English words for the ideas that I want to express. So yeah, I am in this process right now, and I see that this English introduction, together with the temperature description, took about 15 minutes, so it's the third of the whole story, and that's what I was talking about when I wanted to have small stories, 15 minutes long each. Okay, another interesting story that I have, well, it's not so interesting, but it's a good way to practice talking about some like real stuff, not just the abstract thoughts that I have in my mind, but describing something real from the real world, from the real knowledge. And this is the short biography of Albert Schweitzer, and I had his biography written in the famous Soviet series of biographies of different famous people from all over the world, and somehow I had his particular book, his particular biography in my possession. Maybe my mother bought it somewhere in 1980s. Anyway, when I was, I don't know, 20 maybe, I read his biography. I don't remember much from this book, but I knew that this book set some environment for me, and I understood a little about him. And I don't know why I decided to learn about Albert Schweitzer. Maybe I heard about him from somewhere, because it's not a very popular person. And the last and why I remembered about him at all, because I watched these long seminars by Brian Tracy in 2011 in English, and at some point Brian Tracy mentioned Albert Schweitzer as the person who was the individual who represented the moral values in the contemporary world. He was the most bright representative of these moral values until Mother Teresa appeared, and she became the highest representative in the world. Yeah. but before her, it was Albert Schweitzer. And Brian Tracy recalled him because Brian had these seminars on every aspects of the life, and one of the highest not achievements, highest goals in the life is to make to have some examples of the people to whom you want to reach. Who are the stars on your life path, and whose lives are the ways you want to live your life, something like that. It's not like he set these particular people, Schweitzer and Mother Teresa, as the opposite to current rock stars, actors, those who earn lots of money, who are famous, who had lots of sexual adventures, and who had this drugs, alcohol, and other stuff. And Tracy said that lots of young people of our days want to be like these celebrities because of the TV, the internet. Their lives are represented as the ideals, the highest achievements for the life on earth of like every people. But Schweitzer and Mother Teresa, they are famous, but they are not so popular in the current culture. I recall that in some particular comedy, very poor comedy, American parody on something, or maybe on anything, they made this parody image of Mother Teresa, like the woman who was dressed as she, and she jumped and sang. He danced some strange dances somewhere in India. I hope it was in India, maybe in Africa. I don't know. Maybe in Calcutta. Anyway. Well, it was not the best representation of Mother Teresa, but at least I had her mentioning, mentioning somewhere on the TV. But with Albert Schweitzer, there is no such mentionings. There are no some mentions. And Brian Tracy with his seminar was the only guy who reminded me about Albert Schweitzer, and I recalled my experience with wow, just right now I think I remembered where I read about him. I have this book in Russian, very, very unique book that was written in like 1995, 1999. It was about how to determine and develop the abilities of your child, and I read it, and it had different. Okay, I possess this book right now, but I didn't read it for maybe 10 or 15 years. Because it's more like compilation of different information, some psychological tests, some stories, some biographies and other stuff, and the author is not someone very known, like psychologist or something. It's just some person who compiled all this information from different places. I think I read about Albert Schweitzer in this particular book. So when I encountered his biography book in our book collection, I knew about him and I read it. Anyway, I think now when I recalled this book, I will read it, or at least I will look through it, and I'm going to see what information may be quite useful for me, for example, to retell here in my monologue sessions. Anyway, although I read all the book, lots of details were forgotten by me just because, because of their details. For example, I read all Harry Potter's books and I watched all the movies, and sometimes I come back to some of the books, like the third book, the second book, the third book, and when I read the book, I remember along the way that I know all of these events. They're not new for me. I just remember them along the way. But after finishing the book, most of the details just go out of my head, out of my memory, and I have only the most bright, the most impressive events from this book in my memory. So I think this is universal true for any book. So with Albert Schweitzer biography, I remembered only some general facts, but they really the most important facts about him. Yeah, and when I reread his biography in the article on Wikipedia in Russian, I couldn't get more information than I remembered, because the details of his life path, like he walked to one university, then he was the lecturer in another university, then he moved to Africa, returned back, again moved, again returned, they are not so significant, but the overall main ideas, which are like milestones, they sit quite strongly in my head, in my memory, and that's all right. I wish I had these strong facts, yeah, not just the dates of biography, like he was born, he died, but the most important facts for each person, historical person that had some significant achievement in the history. It would be quite cool to have this small, the most important facts for every person. Like, so for Albert Schweitzer, I recalled and I get some information that he was born in 1875 and he died in 1965. So he lived for 90 years. And for the first, he was born in Germany. Well, he was born in Germany, but now I think it is the part of France. Yeah, but then it was the territory that belonged to Germany. Anyway, He had quite like what successful or something education. He was not just very poor guy who couldn't afford himself to go into the university, but he had all this high education, and he had talents in different areas of the life. So till 30 years old, he became the famous theologist and the famous musician. As a theologist, he explored the life of Jesus in the way Jesus was a real person. Again, I got some details from the Wikipedia that Schweitzer wrote that it was easier to prove that Jesus was a real historic person than to prove that Jesus never existed. But Albert Schweitzer wrote his monographies about Jesus as just a man who was born, who lived, who had some teachings, and he preached these teachings in the country on the Israel-Palestine, where he traveled. Yeah, and he talked to different people, and Schweitzer kind of discovered that all the I don't know the English word for the teachings of these four apostles, evangelists. Yeah, like from Matthew, from John, from Luke, and I don't remember really. Anyway, Albert Schweitzer explored this stuff, and he discovered that all these evangelists, they were just the emotional interpretations of Jesus's teachings through the mind of these apostles, and each of these apostles gave some mystical interpretation to the life of Jesus, to his teachings. Yeah, but these four evangelists, they were just some subjective opinions of his students, yeah, who traveled with him, and who later wrote these books. So Albert Schweitzer was the most respectful theologist on the subject of Jesus being the real historical person. And as it is written in Wikipedia, after his monographies on the subject, these explorations or something just stopped for time being, because he almost made the last he said the last word in this particular area. So there was nothing further to explore on the historical existence of Jesus. So Jesus was who was he? It's a different question, but that he was, it was proven by Albert Schweitzer. and also he was I don't know, renowned musician. His specialty was organs and the music by of Johann Bach, and he had some specific interpretation of his organ compositions, and his interpretations of Bach's music was innovative for his time, the end of 19th century. So by the age of 30, he was very famous through the cultural circles. I don't know, through these cultural circles of Europe, for these two areas, for theological stuff about the existence of Jesus, and about his his playing organ activities, plus his critics maybe, or interpretation of Bach's organ compositions. And he through his life, Albert Schweitzer gave lectures in the university, in some German universities, for his theological researches. Okay, so the right word was research, not the exploration, because the exploration is about exploring the material world, like the terra incognita, the Lake Victoria in Africa, the west part of America by Lewis and Clark. And research is about scientific discoveries, the biographies of other people, the works of other people and stuff. So Albert Schweitzer researched materials or information on the historical existence of Jesus, and on interpretations of Bach's compositions. Anyway, till at the age of 30, Albert Schweitzer decided that he was too gifted by nature, by the life, because he had these two achievements in different, and he had other different achievements, but they were not so like high. But in every area that he started to study, he almost advanced, and he, as it is written in Wikipedia, he knew that he was the universal man, which means that he could succeed in any area where he applied his attention. It's not like he had just abilities like a singer or the businessman or something, but his abilities were universal, and he could progress in every area to which he would apply a lot of attention and efforts. So he kind of at the age of 30, in 1905, he decided that he was given by the universe much more, that he kind of, okay, a new word that I want to check, but I can't recall it now. Anyway, he decided to devote his life for serving people, and he went to the medical university, where he studied for the 7 years till 1912. And when he was almost 40, he took his wife, he met his wife. He met his wife in his at the age of 27, but they married almost 10 years later. And when they married, they both moved to Gabon, which is in Africa, and Gabon is situated on the equator. And it has the common borders with Congo, for example. So his wife learned to be a nurse. So he, as a doctor, and his wife as a nurse, they moved to Gabon, and he started to build he started to build his clinics in Lambarana or something, and people from African poor people from Gabon came to him, and he gave him treatments, and different doctors and nurses came to his clinics in Gabon, clinics to work for free, because he kind of invited them. And then, according to Wikipedia, he had some different events in his life, like when the First World War started, he and his wife, as the German citizens, were moved to some camp. Because Gabon was the French territory, and France was in the war with German. But then he was freed from this camp as the exchange for some French soldiers. He gave some lectures and some concerts through the Europe to earn some money, and then he returned back to Gabon, to his clinics, and he continued to build it and to treat the locals. And then again he moved back to Europe to earn money and returned back, and at some point his wife gave birth to his child. I think it was in Gabon as well, or at least he and his wife and his child lived in Gabon for most of his life, and somewhere in 1950s he was against the nuclear weapons after this atomic bomb testing, I think in Japan. So he made he made some statements against this nuclear bomb development, and somewhere in 1954 maybe he earned his Nobel Prize of Peace for his anti-nuclear war statements, and he used this Nobel Prize money to build to improve his clinic in Gabon, and to build the village for the sick locals, for some particular sick locals, but I don't know lepra or something. It's more from Latin. The people who were ill with lepra something, and maybe from 56 and for the rest of his life, like the rest of 9 years that he lived, he stayed in his clinic in Gabon, and he treated people there. And his life died maybe in 57, like 10 years before him. Anyway, the interesting thing that Brian Tracy talked about him in his seminar, and he told some details that were not in Wikipedia, but maybe I read them in his biography, but I don't remember it now. Anyway, Brian Tracy said that Albert Schweitzer was so famous around the world that different people came to his clinics in Gabon to work as doctors for free for two years, and then they moved back to their American lives. And there was one guy who came to, I don't know, who came somehow to Albert Schweitzer, maybe somehow visited him, and Albert Schweitzer said that he wanted this guy to work as physician in his clinics. So this guy didn't want to go from America or Europe to Africa, but when he returned back to his home, he thought about it a lot, and then he called Albert Schweitzer and asked if Albert Schweitzer needed him yet. So Schweitzer answered yes, and then the guy went into the medical institute. He became the physician. He got married. They had children, and he moved to Schweitzer's clinic to Gabon for some time, for some years, to work for Albert Schweitzer. And when Brian Tracy, in his 20s, in 1965, he decided with his friends, Tracy decided with his friends to cross the Sahara Desert from the north to the south in their car, and they almost died along the way, but they survived. And then he moved south, and he reached this clinic in Gabon, and Tracy stayed in this clinic for 10 days, and each day Albert Schweitzer, who was 90 at that moment, he talked to Tracy after his work, and Tracy said that this encounter had an enormous effect on his life. And when Tracy left this clinic in Gabon and moved forward through Africa and then returned back to America, he learned that 10 days after he left this clinic, Albert Schweitzer died. It was 1965, and Albert Schweitzer was 90 years old. So it's really a cool personal experience that was told by this quite famous speaker. about one of the most famous personalities of the 12th century. Yeah. So when I heard this Brian Tracy's experience, and it was, I don't remember when I discovered this particular seminar, maybe 2 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, but because of him, because of Brian Tracy, I remembered learning about Albert Schweitzer. And the most interesting thing that I think I never heard about Albert Schweitzer anywhere on the television, anywhere in any book. Like, you know, when I watched television 10 years ago, 15 years ago, they had this some science TV shows where they discussed the biography of Nikola Tesla and all the theories that were behind his achievements. Like he created this Tungus meteorite, he invented some way to separate hydrogen and oxygen out of water, and then he was killed because the producers of oil wanted the world to be based on oil and not on this free type of energy, and different other speculations. But all these TV shows never told about never told about Albert Schweitzer. They never told about Mother Teresa, for example. Yeah, some of them discussed Jesus' life, maybe Buddha life, Socrates' life, but none of them talked about these great contemporary humanists. Yeah, not the Da Vinci and Michelangelo, who were humanists in the period when the humanism itself was just born, but contemporary guys. I don't know why, maybe it's not so popular nowadays. It's not the fashion to be a humanist like Albert Schweitzer and Mother Teresa were. But anyway, the topic is quite interesting, and together with the previous small topic in today's recording, all this stuff took me more than 50 minutes of recording, but I talked only about these small facts that have quite great impression on me, and you know, the connection between Brian Tracy, who was just who is just one of the speakers on success, and this interesting fact when he met one of the greatest humanist of the 20th century. So yeah, I hope that in the future I will find more different biographies about which I heard before, and about which I have something to say, just like that, not just the facts that can be read in Wikipedia, but some interconnected facts that, yeah, that quite interesting, and that you can't get from Wikipedia or something else. So that's all for today, and I hope in the next videos I will find some other interesting topics that will be interesting for me to discuss, and that will be a good practice of spoken English for me as well. So for today, that's all.